This video is about how you can record content without using a script. And I'm going to go over the benefits of it. I'm going to go over what some people might argue are the disadvantages of speaking without a script or without some guideline. And then I'm going to give you 4 steps that you could use to start doing it as fast as possible. There are a lot of techniques that you can use when it comes to speaking in general, but these 4 are basically the most foundational that you're going to need. And actually, any more nuanced techniques would be a little bit of a distraction. So let me make sure the volume on this is good. Does this do anything? I don't know if it does, but unscripted, totally organic moment. So the only thing I have while I'm recording this is a handwritten list of like 4 things. My handwriting is kind of shit. I don't know if I'll need it or not. We'll see what happens. So the benefits of recording without using a script are, in my opinion, a lot. And the main one is efficiency. You can produce way more content if you've geared yourself properly to speak. So it's faster, it's more efficient, and you avoid this super stressful and grueling process of sitting down and trying to write the perfect script and, like reading it over and over again, and then you finally go to record it and you're super anxious and you can barely even read it correctly, and you have in your head this plan that basically you're going to say everything wrong and then go and edit it in post. And after that happens, it's also a ton of work. If you look at how videos do on YouTube or any social media platform, it really doesn't seem like videos that have heavy editing really do better than videos that don't. There's kind of a mix, whether you're talking about trending videos or educational videos. Trending videos are generally, could be dances. They could be like more so choreographed stuff. It's not really super heavily edited. And sometimes it is super heavily edited, but why go through all of that work and effort? It's not a fun process. The disadvantage some people might see to not editing your videos, or let's say recording without any sort of script. I don't want to say without any structure at all, although I do think that you need a structure. When I get to the second step of the process, you'll see why it's important to have a structure. But a script, you have more control. The argument for a script would be that you have more control over the information that you're putting into your content or into a video. However, as I'm going to get into in a second, the way your brain works kind of counters this pretty handily. Like I believe you could save the writing for creating something to give to people, like a free thing or even like a paid product or articles or a book. But writing a script has many flaws. So anyway, let's get into the process. The first most important thing, if you want to speak on video without a script, and also the most important thing for all communication, is your state of being. If you ever listen to Tony Robbins, he talks about this quite a bit, that your state is the most important thing. And this is probably one of the most unfortunate things that I had to realize and accept, because it meant that my ability to speak on camera, my ability to record videos, or even my ability to coach people, which is what I'm trying to do, although I don't have an offer ready for it yet, was mood dependent. So if I wasn't in a good mood, if I did not feel a certain way, I couldn't communicate in a way that people actually wanted to listen to. I would wind up just kind of shutting down and shrinking away and becoming really anxious. And sometimes I was the exact opposite of that. Sometimes I was confident and outgoing, and people respond much better when you're like that. And I'm not saying that you have to magically become confident. I'm just saying that if you pay attention, the root of your communication, right? Don't take this as an exercise yet. Just notice, try to reflect on your experiences, and notice that the root of the impact of what you say is far less about the actual words you use and more about how you feel. Because how you feel comes across in your tone and in your body language. And if you're not in the proper state of being, in this case when you're recording, it's not going to work. But it's also true if you're trying to flirt with somebody, or you're trying to talk to your parents, or you're trying to do anything. You have to actually be activating their mirror neurons, so to speak. Now, mirror neurons are a very good metaphor for this. Mirror neurons are something in our brain that activate both when we do an action and when we watch someone else do an action. So let's say the example, I looked this up this morning. The example is that they were testing in monkeys originally, like how mirror neurons worked. And if a monkey grabs a banana, certain neurons in its brain activate. If it watches another monkey grab a banana, the same brain activation happens, right? In other words, the experience of doing the thing and watching somebody do the thing activates your brain in the same way. However, there's a key difference in this between monkeys and humans. With monkeys, if a monkey watches a pair of tongs pick up the banana, the mirror neurons don't activate. And further, if the monkey watches someone pick up the banana in a way that is ineffective, the mirror neurons don't activate. So, for example, if I have this cup of coffee here, right, and I go to pick it up like this is the only way it makes sense to do it. It's a functional movement. Monkeys will pay attention to functional movements only. They don't register dysfunctional movements, right? Now, if I go to pick up the glass like this, the monkey doesn't really get that in the same way, because I have to hold the glass upright to drink out of it. Human beings, I learned this morning, have their mirror neurons activate for seemingly meaningless, quote unquote, or non-functional movements. And so what we could loosely extrapolate from that, right? We can't take it too far, but what we can kind of extrapolate from this is that people do pick up on your subtle body language. They pick up on subtle shifts in your tone of voice. And they can tell, maybe not consciously, like maybe they can't articulate it, or maybe they're not comfortable articulating it, or maybe they're not comfortable articulating it to you, but they can pick up on the feeling you have because they're going to mirror your state. So the most powerful way you can communicate in just baseline is through your state of being. And sure enough, you could say the same phrase with two different tones, and in one tone it's a joke, and in the other tone it's an insult, right? You can laughingly say, yeah, you're dumb, you know? And someone might not take that so offensively. Or you could really actually seriously say, you're really dumb, and make it more of a, like you're genuinely calling them stupid. And that becomes an insult. But so the words don't, the meaning of the words extends beyond their actual content. So most important things, state of being, and that can be affected not just by, not arbitrarily, like your diet, what you eat affects your state of being, your health, whether or not you're overweight, what you're paying attention to, which we're going to get into step 2. So it takes more care and consideration. Now, writing does not exclude you from those limitations, right? So yes, those things, your state of being, if it's not proper, will negatively impact your speaking. It will also severely impact your writing. And I see a lot of writers now at the moment, because I'm pretty active in the new Cortex Discord, which is this writing software that Dan Coe is making. And at this point, I've seen hundreds of people trying to start newsletters and get on social media and just write with the goal of building a following and maybe making an income out of it. And they are so stuck in their head that they need to like find the right idea. Like they're playing the lottery. And this is sort of a tangent off the process of doing the video, but you're not playing the lottery. You're not trying to discover the right idea that's going to make you viral or, do something extravagant. You're trying to build something, and that takes energy. One extension you could add to the state of being principle is that when you're in the proper state of being, you're energizing your speech, and it's actually going to have an effect, which brings us to the second thing. Having clear objectives. The biggest reason I see that people can't talk or write is because they're trying to do it in that arbitrary way I just mentioned, where you're kind of trying to like discover a new idea. Like you're trying to play the lottery. You're trying to pick the winning numbers. And this is very superficial in the first place, because there's only so many topics. It's not a mystery what people want, right? This isn't really a game of like, oh, let me discover the pain points and let me find the hot topic. You know what the hot topics are, and probably you're avoiding them because they're hot and you're going to get backlash for talking about them. So clear objectives are twofold, really threefold. You need a minimum of 2 to 3 clear threads in your mind as you're going into speaking or writing, but I'm arguing that speaking is better for this, mainly because your writing lags behind your perception. So if you wrote a whole book, you wrote a 200-page book, 6 months later, a year later, you would probably look back at that book and say you could write it better because you learned more. That may not be everybody, but I have heard authors report that they wrote a book and they looked back and they said, well, if I rewrote it again now, I think it would be a very different book. And so writing, it's funny because in an older video where I was talking about I called it the Beginner Writer's Guide to Self-Doubt. I was talking about how writing is an advantaged form of communication because it can exist and perpetuate without you actively doing it, right? However, I would actually persist that compared to video, or especially compared to live interaction, writing is a very disadvantaged form of communication. And it's far easier to misinterpret than speaking. Speaking, you're already putting yourself on the line, because once you put something in a language, whether that's in words or in text, you're opening yourself up to be disagreed with, and you're opening yourself up to be challenged, because you can very simply, regardless of truth value, you can create a counter argument to anything that is stated linguistically. That's just a staple of rhetoric. So the reason for the clear objectives is really to help channel the energy that you are holding from your state of being. It keeps you focused, and it triggers your brain to start to look for opportunities to organize information in a way that is presentable. And those 2 to 3 threads, the first 2 are almost always going to be the same if we're talking the social media context, which I'm going to try to stick to as best I can. The first thread is the intention of the topic. So for example, in this video, my intention is to take whoever's watching and help put them in the state where they'd be comfortable speaking. Just trying to record a video or something like that, or even going to talk to people. And in the next step, we will get to how you can actually just incorporate your normal interactions to, help forward this process. But first objective is the purpose, the intention. You have to actually feel like there's somebody in front of you who has asked you a question, and you're responding to that question with the full intention to give them what they want. So that's number one. The second one is the end goal in context of content production. And I've also seen a lot of people have trouble with this. People who post videos do not want to admit that the end goal of the video is to get someone to subscribe to their channel, get a follower, get a like, get a comment, maybe get them to download something for free, or maybe offer them something that they could pay for. People are very ashamed of this, and they have a very moralistic stance around anything involving money at all. But if they're going on social media, they seem to have a little bit of an extra moral stance that they can't possibly be offering something, right? It's just out of the goodness of their heart. I don't want to ask anybody to do anything. I don't want to, I don't want to acknowledge the reality of the mechanics of the platform I'm using. I would say this in itself is kind of disingenuous. And I believe that gets communicated. And I actually think most people in that state wind up heavily stifling their speech to the point that they can't even write anything, and let alone sit and record something without having a script in front of them. And I know that because I was that way, and I couldn't do anything. I was totally disabled because I restricted myself from saying or doing everything that would make sense if you're on a video, right? Like if you imagine you're with someone in person, you have simple environmental context. Like there's a door over there, there's a light above you. Well, on social media, your environment is the video platform, and there's a like button and a comment box and a subscribe button. You should subscribe to the channel. But all that stuff is there, and for you not to acknowledge it is, quite frankly, a little bit strange. It's a little bit unnatural, I would say. So clear objectives help shape, actually, step number 3. So again, foundation's your state of being. This is another thing you don't get if you write, by the way, and I will get into this as some like bonus tips. You don't get as much repetition. Most people don't feel like they should repeat if they're writing something down. If you're speaking and you ever try to actually help people understand something, you will learn very quickly that it is important for you to repeat stuff. Because if you don't repeat stuff, they're not going to remember it. You need to actually kind of drill it into people, almost like a practice. Repetition is super necessary. So first thing is state of being, which is where you're actually going to get the core foundational effect of your speaking or even your writing. Second thing is having clear objectives, which is where that energy, that tone, that effect is going to be planted. It's going to be seeded with those objectives so you can start to form an ideas and a structure around it. The third thing is what I'm calling passive rehearsal. And so you're going to either by talking to yourself, recording voice notes, maybe even by writing notes, practice what you're talking about. You're just going to talk about the stuff. You're going to do research. You're going to watch videos. And you're going to start to have ideas of what you would say. I do this a lot. I've always done it. I imagine a lot of people do it. They watch something and they imagine themselves talking about it. A lot of people do this with arguments in relationships. It destroys romantic relationships and friendships, but that's a whole topic for another video. You focus on your objectives, and this transfers into your normal activity, and your brain starts to process how you would verbally orchestrate this information. And you practice by talking to friends, family, whoever you're comfortable talking to, by recording voice notes. And this is where there's a key point. There's a key component here that makes a massive difference. You are not trying to save any of this stuff, okay? The goal here is not to record something that's going to have some magical lottery-like effect, like I just mentioned. The goal here is to teach yourself. You are saturating your brain in information, and every night when you go to sleep and then wake up the next day, or even if you just step away for an hour or two, by the time you come back, your brain, with the magic of human intelligence, is going to have come up with an even better way that you've never thought of before to present the thing that you're seeking to present. And that winds up becoming what I think is the most challenging thing for people, is that when you record, by the time you hit the recording, this is you peaking. Okay, so everything you've written up till that point, all the bullet points, all the notes, any recordings, you're not playing this game of trying to like hold on to the key points that, oh, this is compelling. I have to make sure I get this in the video. And if I miss this point, it's going to be a huge problem. That's not the goal. You are actually, at the point you go to record, doing your best to forget about all that, let go, detach, allow yourself to have a deeper understanding of the consequence. You have to prime a lot of stuff before you do this. It's very hard to actively undo a lot of reactions you might have. And I'll get into that in the last step next. But passively rehearse, and damn, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Passively rehearse. Oh yeah, you're not playing a game of trying to like remember points. You're trying to detach and just allow your brain to synthesize the structure that you've pre-planted in your planning process, preparation process, passive rehearsal process is what I called it. The fourth final thing, super necessary, is you have to practice. But the practice, a lot of people say just do it, and you know, as you keep doing it, you'll get better. That is true. However, when you practice something, it is kind of important that you know exactly what you're practicing, so you have awareness of it. Because it is possible to practice the wrong things. That's very easy to do. And if you've ever tried to train yourself to do anything, or you've done like martial arts or sports or anything like that, you can practice the wrong way and it can sabotage your performance and lead to many bad habits later on. So the first things you have to do are decondition what are essentially your panic responses. Because there's a panic response that triggers, you call it anxiety, but really what you're really tense on camera at first before you're used to it. And this is just a reaction, right? It's very easy to get in your head about that and overthink why you feel that way. It is just a reaction to what is a perceived risk. You could dig into why you have that perceived risk, but that doesn't really matter. It's basically exposure therapy. So as you start recording yourself on camera, the goal at first actually is not to produce something that's high quality and usable. And that's just the truth. And this is almost the same with writing. But I think writing is a little bit too shallow to get the same level of energy and confidence built up in yourself. And this process will develop your writing skill far more than doing the writing itself, believe it or not. The writing will help develop your way of thinking, but the art of verbalizing something helps you understand when you do or don't need to write stuff down, and then further extend the purpose of it, which again, I think should actually just be creating things that people can use. So you're practicing deconditioning your panic responses, firstly to being on camera, and then secondly to talking without being able to watch someone's response. I would imagine everybody can get into the proper state of being that they need to be in to speak when they're with their friends. Even if it's not 100% of the time, some of the time. When you're comfortable, you can get into this state of being where you're having fun and you're not afraid to mention things. You could speak freely. Everybody has an element of that somewhere in their life. you're trying to train yourself to do that anytime. And from my current experience, it's not a ton of experience because I'm still small on all my social media areas. But from my experience, growth, trying to build a following, trying to network and connect with people, takes a lot of energy. You have to actually do the connecting. There's no way around that. It takes energy for you to do that. And when you can either increase the amount of energy you have, or you can remove the resistance to the current energy you have. And you should do both. The way you increase it is through exercise, diet, and good sleep. A whole bunch of health habits. Your body's actually what's producing your energy. That's why you're alive and you can move and be animated. And to decrease the resistance is really changing your perspective. To acknowledge a lot of things that are true about the recording process and speaking process, and also deconditioning yourself, because that stress response is heavily burdening your ability to speak. And once that happens, this is where we'll get into the bonus about scripting. Once you get triggered into this stress state, you will find yourself immediately wanting to cling to a script and read off a sheet of paper or read off of a computer screen. And because I've done this before, and you can pick it out with people on YouTube, even if they've gotten better at reading a script, because social media scripts are written incorrectly. They're not complete scripts. An actual script for like a movie or something is written with camera angles and action lines and physical movement and scene changes and all of this stuff in the script. But the way it's kind of implied you write a social media script is like you literally write a wall of text and then you read it. There's no body language acting. There's no intonation written into it. So the script isn't written properly. And even if it was, I would argue most people probably can't act it out very reliably. So the scripting thing, it's immediately noticeable. It kills your state of being because everybody can tell it's mechanical and robotic. And unless you're like, trying to cite it for a school project or something, like the Hank Green videos on YouTube. That's why I learned about the mirror neurons this morning. I knew about mirror neurons, but I wanted to brush up on my, knowledge of them. If you're looking for like that kind of sort of academic, semi-corporate style presentation because you're in a very specific situation, you need to, cite your sources or something like that. That's one thing. But if you're actually trying to appeal to people, it's not going to happen by reading off of a piece of paper. It could if you go through the whole process and you write a really good script and then you put in the body language and the tone and you actually practice acting and then you memorize the script and then you talk the script anyway. I can't memorize text like that for anything. If you just follow those steps, focus on your state of being. I'm not going into techniques about how to develop your state of being like that in this video because I could go on for a whole hour just about that, but it really is the only thing that matters. At the end of the day, if you have your state of being right, all of the other three things and a bunch of other things I didn't mention will naturally align themselves. So if you can get that and sort of just put your attention on it, notice how your state shifts and how it impacts the way you move through your life, that's going to be the most impactful. And then to consolidate the last three steps into one actionable, basically, you're going to take that state of being and continually try to apply it to your communication in real life. You're going to then apply it to social media and recording with clear objectives in mind. With your friends, you can have the clear objective only of kind of teaching or explaining or exploring something. But once you get on a recording, you add the objective of get people to follow me. So In this video, I don't have any free stuff developed to give you yet. I don't have any paid offers to point you to yet. So I can just ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave any comments if there's any part of this video that you want to hear more about, so I can make another unscripted response to it. And I will see you in the next video. The bonus thing, it didn't really get around to the bonus. It's not really a bonus. It was just a mention about scripts. If you approach from this angle of speaking first and like state of being as the foundation, then you can use bullet points to help you organize your thinking. It just becomes a problem if you're doing the writing first as like your main focus and then trying to speak based off of it. Usually you'll wind up clinging to it and you can't really like free associate or speak in a compelling way. So again, if you enjoyed this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment if there's anything else that you want to hear about regarding this topic. Thank you for watching.